I think it's really common when people sit for a while quietly, whether they call that meditation or not, for a lot of anxiety to come up. So
Mhm.
it's not surprising to me that at the beginning of the pandemic, that was really hard for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's what was making it hard, was like the anxiety from the pandemic?
Absolutely. There were things happening in my life also that were contributing to anxiety. But yeah, so I have three of my signs. I have a stellium in Capricorn, right? Like there, even
Mm.
though I have a lot of Taurus on my chart as well, but which balances me out. But there is a sense of control that I like a
Yeah.
control chaos that I thrive in. And at that time in particular, no one knew what was happening. Like there was no way to just land. There was nothing to look for, any clarity around. And that I think was super unsettling. It took me a while to find some grounding enough to kind of navigate my way through. But yeah, absolutely. And, thinking about the work that I do with folks in the world around healing space, that comes up. Folks who have histories of trauma often have a difficult time sitting in silence, sitting in stillness. And,
Mhm.
that's valid. And I think actually one of my most popular TikTok videos that I made um, was about sitting meditation. It was like, oh, like there are other ways to find stillness, walking in nature, journaling, different ways to access a meditative practice. And I think it was so popular because the comments were saying, thank you for this. I
Yes.
ADHD, I live with anxiety, I have a history of trauma, you know, meditation and silence used to be used as a tool of manipulation or punishment for me. And so it was just so validating for folks to understand that there are other ways and that you're not broken. People even said that I'm not broken. Like, wow, we do tend to, especially in the spiritual and wellness space, hold this idea of stillness and sitting meditation as the standard for accessing this practice. And it does leave out a lot of our community who
Mhm.
have histories of trauma and other experiences. And I think, especially in the pandemic when collectively we were struggling, um, yeah, I think a lot of people probably didn't realize why maybe their practices had changed or, their experience in that moment. So it feels important to validate for ourselves.
Yes. Yes, and I think that, a lot of people don't realize that meditation isn't just sitting
Mhm.
quietly. There's so many different forms, so I'm glad you did that video, and hope you'll do more content in that direction, because I think that, um, everyone has the need for some stillness and some, um, reflection, and that's not the only way,
Yeah.
you know? And I think in general, as healthcare providers, we need to offer trauma-informed services,
Yeah.
and think about these things that we're prescribing for people. If we're asking people
Yeah.
to go do something which we know is gonna trigger their anxiety because of their trauma history, are we really helping?
Mhm. It is an ongoing practice, which I think is important to name too, right? Like there's so much that I'm having to unpack and deconstruct and question in my own experience and in the way that I do my work in the world constantly, that's changing and evolving. And I'm still learning about, the experiences of folks from different, walks of life. And all of that is constantly just evolving for me. And I think in order to do this work justice, you have to be committed to that ongoing path,
Mhm.
questioning, sitting with, ask it, you know,
Yeah.
understand.
Listening and learning.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a constant process. But that's part of what makes it fun, right? Like, I would be really bored doing something that didn't require constant, realignment, you know?
Mhm.
I'd be super
Yeah.
bored.
And I love just as we evolve and learn more about, I think about queer and trans communities, even since my work
Mhm.
began 15 years ago when my career started to now, just that enlightenment and understanding and evolution and language. And, that's so powerful to be a part of and to acknowledge and to lean into because it's supportive of seeing the folks you're working with thriving and being understood and being seen. And I love that. I
Mhm.
do. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and imagine for me, like, I started in 1987. So, that part of the work has
Yes.
really, like, changed a lot, a lot, a lot.